This episode is brought to you by the Conscious Combo Network and the Black Boy Fly Club. Go to www.blackboyfly.club to learn about the movement, get books, merch, and just get connected with the brand overall. Again, www.blackboyfly.club. I hope you enjoy the next episode. Welcome to another episode of the Black Boy Fly podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Isaac Addae. Thanks for tuning in. And let me just say to everybody that's already watched past episodes on YouTube or Apple, Spotify, all the podcast platforms, I really appreciate you guys. I'm just getting my stride with this. I'm having fun with it. There's so many conversations I'm looking forward to have. And there's so many people that I'm looking forward to interviewing on this platform. So make sure you subscribe, tune in, share with your friends, tell somebody else to listen to the Black Boy Fly podcast. This episode, we're going to talk about struggling. Aren't you tired of struggling? I've been at that point at many points and times in my life. And there were times where I was stuck. And then there were times where I found my way out of that rut. All right. You've probably experienced something at some point in time in your life and you've realized, you know what? This isn't working for me. I got to make a change. I got to do something different. How do you get to that point? What actually causes you to take action? There are so many things that I can talk about that I've struggled with. Let me just kind of unpack a few and I'll talk about how I got over it. All right. For me, the first struggle, probably my most significant struggle that I faced in life was going through a divorce, and I was stuck. And I would tell my friends, man, I'm going to get back on my feet. I'm going to get moving. I'm going to get moving. And that went on for months. And I had people around me who called me out. Ike, are you okay? You all right, bro? What's happening? What's going on? Man, I was stuck. I was struggling. And it took me a while to find my way through. What helped me get out of the rut that I was experiencing while I was going through a divorce and then post the divorce was locking in on what my purpose in life was. I had to really do some soul searching and discover me. Now, based on the stats, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have experienced divorce or you know somebody that experienced it, or maybe even your parents or somebody in your family. It's one of those things that it can take the wind out of your sails, but don't let it get you stuck. All right. Again, for me, I had to tap back into what my purpose in life was. Once I started to have a better sense of my purpose, I started to find a way out of that space of being stuck. Just one example. Here's another. There was a point in time where I was working in my engineering career and I realized I don't want to be an engineer anymore. I'm not as passionate about this as I thought I would be. I was stuck. I had spent 7 years getting 2 degrees, was working in some of the top companies on all kinds of special engineering design projects. But when I realized that I wanted to do something else in my life, I was stuck because I didn't know what I wanted to do next. All I knew from the 8th grade was that I wanted to be an engineer. It took me 2 years to find my way out of the hole that I was in mentally and emotionally, thinking about how I would transition out of my engineering career. Again, I went back to my purpose. What was I created to do? Why am I here? What unique talents do I have, and what unique purpose am I supposed to fulfill in my life? Those are the questions that I started asking myself. Now, I've never really told anybody about this, but I looked at everything. I thought about going to be a math teacher. I thought about going to be a doctor. I actually started volunteering at a local hospital while I was living in the DC area and taking classes at a community college to start prepping for the MCAT. No lie, I went that far. I looked at public policy. I spent about 2 years really trying to discover what the career path was going to be for me going forward. And I figured it out. But again, it went back to understanding my purpose. All right. Another example of something that I struggle with. There was a point in time where I was not happy with my physical appearance. I felt as though I was overweight and unhealthy. And that went on for a few months. But for some reason, I was able to really get a hold of that much faster and get unstuck from that than I was other things. I basically got my butt in the gym. Now, I've been a runner pretty much since I was in 7th grade. But life got in the way, and I went from being Slim Ike to Big Ike, like Little Luther and Big Luther. I was Big Ike out in these streets, y'all. It was real. I got in the gym and I dedicated myself to working out twice a week with a trainer. Shout out to Kevin Bazile at 8020 and Jade Bazile. I trained with them and I was going hard in the paint twice a week in the gym, diet, exercise, sleep. I did everything that I knew that I needed to do to get healthy. I think what happened though was I had been stuck in that space maybe longer than I had realized, the space of being unhealthy and unhappy with my body. And luckily, fitness is something that's all around us. And the solution for that is much easier than figuring out what your next career move is. It's just get moving, get in the gym. And I got with a trainer, I transformed my body, and that was an amazing run. And my mental strength was just as great as my physical strength. And I maintained all of that up through the pandemic, but again, it was something that I was stuck with and then I had to work my way through it. All right. Now, I have a lot of people around me who've dealt with things. I've dealt with things. You've dealt with things. And people that are dealing with things right now. And so many of us find ourselves in a space where we know the change that we want to make. We can see it. I want to make more money. I want to get healthier. I want a better relationship. I want a new job. I want to live in a new city. We're all processing some types of change that we want to make in our life. But what is it that actually puts you in motion? What is it that gets you from I want to make this change to I'm going to make this change? I don't know how that works for everybody, but I'll tell you how that works for me. The type of person that I am, when I get in a space of unhappiness, I don't like it. I love to be in control of my emotions. I love to have a generally positive mood. I'm just a happy person, chill. I'm the coolest person you'll probably ever meet. But when I get in the space of unhappiness, I know that it's rooted in something, and I can't stay in that space because it eats me alive, and I just have to do something about it. So when I've thought about those career changes, when I was processing, going through a divorce, when I was thinking about getting control of my health and my physical fitness, I basically didn't want to stay in that space of unhappiness, and that's what drove me to do something about it. What does it take for you to get moving? You know the thing you want to do. You've likely talked about it to everybody around you for who knows how long. But at what point are you going to decide, you know what, today is the day. I'm going to do something about it. So I want to empower you to really think about that change that you want to make. Process it based on your purpose. If you understand your purpose, making these changes is less difficult because you know that change you're making is somehow connected to fulfilling your purpose. I got my butt in the gym and I tried my best to get in shape because I realized that part of my purpose in life was to impact the world through teaching and education and speaking. And if I wasn't healthy, I wouldn't have longevity to do that work. So I had to get in the gym and reverse the downward trend or the downward spiral that I was taking from a health perspective. Anytime I've made career changes, I've thought to myself, what is my purpose? Okay, is this change putting me on that path, closer to being on that path? If so, I got to make the change. Now, what I will say is that the older that I've gotten, in some areas it's easier to make those changes, but in other areas it's harder to make those changes. And I think just as human nature and human beings, we're somewhat resistant to change just based on who we are. But you got to make that change. All right. You have to make that change. You'll hear me talk a lot on this podcast about purpose, about influence, about change, because these are the things that I have realized that will define and really dictate your future, is your ability to understand those things. So again, dialing into your purpose is key, because that gives you somewhat of a vision and a direction and something to work toward. And if you're clear on your purpose and you've been thinking about this change for some time, ask yourself, is the change that you want to make connected to your purpose? Is it going to allow you to better live your life in a way where you're fulfilling your purpose? If so, you got to make that change and you got to get started today. Now, I know when somebody says you just got to get started, it's not that cut and dry. It's much harder. My wife and I were having this conversation yesterday about how we actually get started. And in some cases, some people just say, you know what, I'm just going to do something about it. In other cases, it might take people months, even years to get started. But I'm here to tell you that your life depends on you making the changes that you need to make to get closer to living out the purpose in your life in terms of why you were created and why you were placed here to begin with. And if you need to make a change, then I want you to embrace that and move toward making that change. Now, here's where influence comes into play. You can acknowledge your purpose. You can acknowledge the changes that you need to make in your life, but who's around you that's supporting you in terms of you making that change? That's where influence plays a role. The people that are around you are likely either holding you back in terms of you making the change you need to make, or they're pushing you forward in terms of helping you embrace the change that you need to undergo. So look at the people that are around you. Are they encouraging you? Are they supporting you when it comes to making this change that you know is going to save your life, or making this change that you know is going to change the quality of your life? If not, you got to get around some new people. All right. You may have folks around you saying you can't do it. You can't make that change. I don't believe that. I think that whatever you put your mind to and whatever you manifest will happen, but you have to believe that you can actually do it. You have to believe that you can make that change. All right. Tap into your purpose. Get a good circle of people around you that help influence you on a daily basis. Think about the changes that you need to undergo to become the person that you're meant to be, and get moving. Baby steps. You don't have to get in shape overnight. It took me almost a year to get into the shape that actually maybe more like 7 months to get into the shape that I wanted to get into. And then I kept going, just trying to build that habit. All right. Change is hard. Trust me. I've been stuck before. I have been tired of struggling at many times in my life on different topics. And I got to a place where I just had to do something about it, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. All right. Now, let me ask you this question. Think about this. Think about the change that you've been wanting to make in your life. If you don't make that change, what happens? Think about it. The change that you've been pondering over, thinking about, talking about, praying over, if you never make that change, what happens? When you think about the answer to that question, that should give you the fuel that you need to make a step toward that change starting the day that you hear this podcast. All right. Again, what's going to happen if you don't do anything? If I didn't get control of my health, my longevity would be cut short. If I stayed in the space of unhappiness from a career perspective, my emotional health would have been compromised, which would have then compromised my physical health, financial health, and so many other things. All right. If I stayed in the space of being stuck after going through a divorce, I don't put myself in a position to find love again and to get married again and to have a wonderful partner like I have today. So your life depends on you making those changes that you need to make. You cannot afford to go another day without doing what you need to do in terms of making change. And you're talking to a person who has gone through the depths of struggle on numerous fronts and found a way through it. And I don't necessarily consider myself to be special, but I'm talented in many ways, but I'm human and I've struggled with things and I've been publicly speaking about that. But I want you to know that no matter what you're faced with today, no matter what you're struggling with today, I know you're tired of struggling. Let's do something about it. Tap into your purpose. Get a good group of people around you in terms of your influence, and make that change. Do whatever you got to do. You got to make a vision board. You got to write it out on the wall. You got to go get a tattoo of it. You got to go post on social media, and tell the world that this is what you're going to do. Whatever you have to do, your life depends on you making that change. Don't let another day go by where you say, I'm going to do something about this, and you don't. Trust me, the people that are around you, they're watching and they're listening and they're looking and they're hearing you say repeatedly that you want to do these things and they want to help you get there. Some of them don't think you can do it. And quite honestly, some of them don't think you will ever do it. but I know that you'll do it because you are someone who has a life that has meaning, and you're going to get that out. I know it. You're going to achieve that purpose that you were created to fulfill. You're not going to let anything stop you from doing so, because you're going to look at me as an example. And I want you to say, if Isaac can do it, so can I. If he can overcome some of the greatest challenges, I can too, because you definitely can. And I want you to. And I want to hear about what you're struggling with. And I want to hear what are the things that you're doing that are going to help you overcome that. What are you going to commit to do this month, this quarter? It's almost over. 2022. We're, almost halfway done. Happy New Year in a few months, right? Get moving on those goals. Make the change that you need to make so you can become the person that you're intended to be. Don't allow yourself to get stuck. I know you're tired of struggling, and you're going to do something about it today. All right? So to reiterate, purpose. What are you supposed to be doing with your life? What unique thing are you created to fulfill or to do? Influence. Who are those people that are around you that are going to help you become the person that you need to become? Who are the folks that you need to remove from your circle that may be holding you back? And change. What changes do you need to undergo to become the person that you're intended to be? You likely already know the answer to all three of these questions, and you've likely been pondering over this change for some time. But because you just listened to this episode of the Black Boy Fly podcast, you're going to do something about it, and you're going to change and become that person that you're intended to be. I know you're capable. I want you to get moving on that. Drop me some comments. Let me know what you think about this episode, and let me know what changes you're working to undergo. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still evolving. I'm still thinking about the changes that I need to make. And again, I can empathize with you because it's not easy all the time. There are things that I've wanted to change for some years now, and I've still been thinking, like, how do I get going on that? How do I get going on it? Really, you just got to get going. It's called momentum. Once you start getting something moving and you start getting that energy, it becomes easier to repeat that habit. I just kicked this podcast off recently, and every week I've told myself I'm going to record new episodes, and I've been doing so. I've created that momentum. It's up to me to keep that momentum going versus letting it die down. So think about the changes you need to make. Get some momentum going. Surround yourself with some people that are going to help motivate you and encourage you, and keep that purpose in mind so that you can become the person that you're intended to be. Thanks for listening to this episode, and thanks to everybody that's tuned in to the past episodes and has engaged with the content. This Black Boy Fly train is continuing to move. Look forward to see you on the next episode. Take care.